The Jazz have added a couple of players kind of, sort of, since you and I last talked. The young man from Yale got himself a contract for the Utah Jazz. Miye Oni is now part of the Utah Jazz. It's not a long-term deal. At least we don't think it is. The Jazz don't release terms. But what do you make of the Jazz signing their draft pick out of Yale, Gordie?
Well, one, I like his talent level. We're talking somebody that's a 6'6", athletic, I'll call him a 2-3 wingman that plays without the ball. He slashes to the rim, and he tries to move the ball. Now, Bill, speaking of his contract, the way I'm reading it is that they gave him 3 years with the first year guaranteed. And for the listeners right now, with this is the fourth year of the NBA new agreement with the players' union. The lowest you get paid in the NBA this year, this would be this person. This is a player without NBA service. In other words, you didn't play one game yet in your career. The lowest you get paid this year is $898,000, $310. $898,310. That's the minimum contract in the NBA. And Bill, that's different than a rookie pay scale when a guy's picked, we'll say like Brandon Clark at 14 in the draft. That's different then. So lowest you can pay this year is $898,310.
It's not bad, even with his Yale education. I don't know that he was going to land a job that was going to pay him that much for a year.
He's probably the highest paid Yale graduate in the class of 2019.
He will be
crazy.
He will be up there, that's for sure. But you don't expect him to be a regular roster guy. He's going to be a guy that probably bounces back and forth, a la Tony Bradley in what Grayson Allen did a year ago, mostly with the Stars, a little bit with the Jazz, right?
That is correct. He'll be back and forth, but still getting his NBA contract. And his development, you want to play. The worst you could do ever in any sport is to be on the bench, never getting into a game. I always laugh, Bill. I laugh and I almost cry when I see players when they go to the wrong college, the wrong university. I have a real problem in college basketball, Bill, when you know in your heart of hearts that the guy can't play early at that level and well at that level, and the guy still goes there, and then he transfers 1 or 2 years later, versus seeing the big picture. If you're so good, lead your team to the NCAA tournament as a mid-major. Pretty simple.
And playing time is playing time. A lot of guys worry about going to a big program so they get seen. Gordie, you know this. You get seen everywhere now. You can go to a mid-major or even a low-end program. People are going to see if you're good.
Very much. The scouting is absolutely all year round at every level, whether it's European, whether it's in the States, whether it's over in China and that part of the world now. So if you're a good player, you're going to find it. Let's add to this. Bill, as far as the G League, last year the finishing roster of the NBA, 53% of the NBA players that finished this season on a roster played at least one game during their career in the G League.
That's interesting.
Which tells you that G League is here to stay forever.
Oh, it is, and it's got, and you know this, Gordie, just from the time where you were dealing a lot with the G League, just the last 4 or 5 years, the level of play, the benefits, the pay, everything's come up.
The players come up right. So the two-way contracts, so the Jazz right now have 2 openings as far as two-way contract players. They haven't signed guys yet. The base salary, Bill, is $77,250, and then each game that you're on an NBA roster where you got called up, whether you play in the game or not, the way the NBA interprets it, it's $4,737 per game that you can get paid. So the math of it, a guy that plays in the G League and is on a roster for 45 days, in other words, you're on an NBA roster as far as being eligible, you can make roughly $385,000.
Not bad, Gord.
No, it's not. So the learning point about that, Bill, is to not go overseas. So the NBA and the Players Union in lockstep, they made this agreement, which makes very much sense, where why should these young guys go overseas where they can play in the G League and be more ready for the NBA and truly out of sight, somewhat out of mind, in season, not off season, but in season, they can be called up on a 10-day contract, and you never know how it plays out that way.
Jazz roster mostly set now, Gordie. What do you expect between now and camp and even into the season? Do you think they add one more player?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think they're going to keep it at 14 and keep one open roster spot, because we know a lot of times guys fall through the cracks where they were going to go overseas to China, and then suddenly on September 14th they didn't go. So now they're back in the States, and now they could be on that team, and they have no leverage. A huge factor in the who has leverage in the offseason. In free agency, for the first, we'll say, 8 or 9 days, the players had leverage. After the first 9 days, then there's no leverage by anybody. It's all tilted towards the team.
So you think they just kind of keep it steady for now and leave that spot open just in case something pops, but they're not necessarily looking right now? That
is correct. But now, you realize they signed the William Howard from France.
And that was the next guy I wanted to ask you about. Go ahead.
You know his background, Bill. He played high school basketball in Maryland in the States. And then he's supposed to go to the University of Washington, a Husky. But unfortunately, even though he speaks well English, there was a problem with his SATs as far as the English part of it, and the NCAA ruled him ineligible. And that's when he went back over to France and played in France. And now he is coming to the Jazz. I'm assuming, Bill, it's not a guaranteed contract. The buyout was a $150,000 buyout. And where the rules are in the NBA, just for the listeners, is that an NBA team can pay up to $750,000 to help the players buy out. This buyout was very nominal at only $150, and that $150 does not count against the team's salary cap. So it's an incentive for the team to try to get the guy to come over to America to make the Jazz-type team.
Gordie Chiesa with us here on the Bill Riley Show. I had the pleasure of having Derek Favors in studio yesterday. Gordie came in for an hour. On his way basically to the airport on his birthday to go to New Orleans to get introduced today. And I'd interviewed Derek, in media scrums before over the years, but never really had a chance to sit down with him one-on-one. Such a nice guy. I mean,
yes,
such a genuine, down-to-earth, nice guy. Couldn't have been any better in the studio for an hour with me. Was very forthcoming. I really enjoyed chatting with him.
It's add to that. Now he's going to be the starting center for the Pelicans, and the Pelicans should start Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Derek Favors, or maybe they could start J.J. Redick. So in Derek Favors' world, besides being a good guy, he's going to play a lot at center and or power forward. Let's not forget in Jazz basketball, he finished his career 10th all-time in Jazz basketball in games played. 10th.
Yeah.
So he was here for a long time and did a very good job.
Did a great job. 8.5 seasons here in Utah, and you and I talked about it when he came here. He was the youngest player in the NBA, grew up. Said he had good mentors. It was Joe Smith for a little while in New Jersey, and he had Memo, and he had Al Jefferson, and he had Paul Millsap here. And he told me one of the things David Griffin and Alvin Gentry told him, and one thing he was looking forward to, he's going to be the guy that gets to mentor Zion Williamson.
And that's a good thing for Zion to get someone like that that's been also a high pick. Derek is picked number 3 in the draft by New Jersey, and so he's used to having that spotlight on him. And the whole thing is be able to listen to what the veterans are saying to you. Now, let's add to this. Young players only listen to you, though, if you still have game. And in Derek Favors' world, he does have game. So their listening ability by all the young players will be heightened because, by the way, I still can play this game.